everyone. Welcome back to another KiteCast show. We have a real treat today. Tim and I are speaking with Alexandre Blanc. He's up north of the border in Montreal, Canada. Alexandre, thanks for joining us today. We're looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, hi Patrick, Tim. Really happy to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, Alexandre, let's start with your background. You've been in cybersecurity for about 12, 15 years. You're a strategic security advisor over at VARS. You have been there for I think about 3 years. You've done some really cool branding on LinkedIn. We'll want to talk a bit about that. You're one of the top 20 voices in cybersecurity. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of acronyms and awards and everything else that you have that go behind your name. But let's start by introducing yourself to our audience. How'd you get into cybersecurity, and talk a little bit about your current role.
Yeah, so basically, I was an IT person back in end of the 90s, and this is a time where IT people would have to protect the infrastructure as well, and the responsibility of this grew, and basically cybersecurity did come as a whole new domain, new field by itself, and I was basically sticking to IT, and at some point I realized that I was doing more security and attack surface management and risk management than IT. And the fun stuff is that I didn't start on LinkedIn until I think 2018 or something. And
wow.
This is the fun part that people don't know. It was a kind of a discussion with the marketing guy who was like really an ex-IT person. And we had a long discussion about that. And I didn't want to kick in the field of the marketing of the communication side. And I just started to share on LinkedIn my take on things, trying to get insight. And that did open crazy things, crazy exchange I didn't see coming. I mean, I had so many contacts over there, so many workshops I got invited to. That did open many, many things that I didn't see coming. So I'm really happy with that. The only thing is I say what I think is right. And I really read and like to read people's take on things, because I mean, you know me a little bit. People know me because I complain a lot about the cloud, the leaks and stuff like that. But it's a fair game, we need voice, I think, like that challenge the statu quo, ask questions, so as we enhance things overall. So that's kind of me. I don't know. That's how I did.
That's really interesting how you're really kind of late to the game on LinkedIn in many ways, but you dived head first and you have a bunch of followers. So maybe that's a good starting point. You're kind of late to the game. How do you build the number of followers that you have? I think you're up to, is it 30,000 or something like that you have on LinkedIn now, I believe, or
it's like
digits.
Yeah, 70,000 or 71,000 already.
70,000.
Yeah.
So how do you do that over a relatively short period of time?
I don't know. People like what I share. I mean, the key. I mean, I'm consistent. I post on a regular basis. I maintain accurate information. I stick to the thing I like, to my field, and I try to bring value. The key in every post on my end is trying to make a difference, getting something to take out of it, or trigger a reflection. There is all the time something to think about. If you are a CISO, risk manager, decision maker, or business manager, for every share that I do, there is something to think about that you may not have been thinking about, and that may help you enhance the posture, the resilience of your organization. So that's the goal, and I think people like it.
So let me ask a quick question here, Patrick. Before we go on too far, I noticed in your profile you're with VARS, VARS, right now, right? Can you tell a little bit more about that? I mean, I've been doing this a while. I know what a VAR is, but what's VARS? How'd you get involved? A little more info on that would be great.
VARS is doing basically managed security services and consulting on cybersecurity.
Is it a company or?
It's a company. I'm hired, and this is part of this is also on my profile of a bigger company called RCGT, and VARS is the cybersecurity division of that. So I've been doing that for 3 years. Almost. And on my end, I kind of kick on calls about complex topics. If company organization face challenges, and I'm making the communication easy, bring a good understanding between tech and managing people, and also bringing the risk understanding to the business side of things. And also, I'm very, very technical, so I can really speak the language of the tech guys, the solution provider, and answer the interrogation. Because what we see in the market when organization brings solutions, they this is triggering a lot of question from the customers because they have goals. They want to protect the organization. They want to achieve something, and obviously the sales pitch is always magical. It does everything. It's fantastic.
Mhm.
So yeah, but we face. I mean, there is a lot of legitimate skepticism. People don't believe everything in the sales pitch. So I'm trying to be true to the technical side of things, what it does, what it doesn't. So there is no like wrong expectation, like zero BS on my end, and
Sure.
that's how I try to drive the thing with people because we need
Yeah.
that on the market. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get it. And it's kind of a rare breed to be able to balance both the thought leadership and the technical, because there's a lot to consume and remember and pay attention to in both of those aspects. You like one more than the other at this point, strategy versus tech, or are you still
Um,
enthused about
it,
both?
it's more now strategy on my end than tech. I keep my own, home lab stuff, and I play with things. I kind of review sometime before going through a product. I would get it, try it, and really go through it the way you would do a CTF kind of things. The
Hmm.
hacking part of it, because I don't want to deceive people. So I try as much as I can to validate what's out there. And if I do not have the time to validate or I do not have access to the thing, I try to correlate the information and find multiple sources around so I can actually back what's said or what's claimed on the stuff.
What
Yeah.
managed services are you focused on, Alexander? Are there specific cybersecurity areas that you hone in on, or are you sort of a broader solution provider that focuses on a lot of different areas?
I'm it's a more broad the broad side of things. It's about answering the needs and matching what organization need on my end, and that's not me like that's what I want to bring to organization is an answer or a solution. If I don't know, I will basically send them to people who knows to get the best advice. And if I know and I can recommend stuff, I will solution for them. This is just about being practical and also really understanding the context of these businesses. Because I mean, from ICS and it depends on the vertical in which the business is, and the reality is totally different. And we have also to consider the compliance side of things, the side of the threat landscape itself. So it's each time it's like, and that's the part I like is analyzing, understanding the reality, and trying what makes sense. Because it's different all the time.
Are you hearing a any sort of trend in the past year or two in terms of strategies that customers are asking you about that's new? Obviously AI. So let's push AI away for a moment. Anything else that you're hearing more than you used to in the top of minds of customers?
Um, there is a big change in the regulation side of things, especially here in Quebec, where I'm located. There is the Law 25, which is basically the implementation of GDPR. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one big thing because the deadlines did fall on that recently, and it comes on many requirements. One is the data governance, know what you have, drive the data and stuff. So it requires policies, but there is also mandatory protection that you need to bring to the data and the infrastructure, not to be held accountable or responsible of a breach. And for that, they need to put the right security control in place. So that has been a big boost in the need for organization towards security, because before that it was just needing to protect yourself, but this is your own risk decision. Right now there is a big push from the legislation back to companies, so they have no option but doing it. And sometimes it's quite painful because the maturity on the markets in Canada, or at least what I see in Quebec, is very low. A lot of SMBs, they do not have security people, and a lot of them don't even have IT people in house. So they rely on a service provider outside, and it's challenging because they'll try to respond to the need. but it's quite a complex situation. So it's just, and when I speak, I spoke earlier about translating the need and the requirement to the business side of things. This is what happened, and like why you need to do it, how you can do it, and who should help you do it. Sometimes it's not even me or the company providing service. Like when they have a service provider on IT side, that your IT provider should help you do that. So basically, advisory side of things.
Yeah. We did some work a little while. This Law 25, right? The Bill 64, formerly
Yeah.
known as. Yeah. We did some work on understanding that and kind of providing some messaging around it for our Canadian customers, I don't know, like 5 or 6 months ago. But I remember just having a perspective that there were some gaps there, which are gaps I see quite often. I wonder if they've been filled. It's been a little while. But one of them I remember being just the uh, enforcement and fines being a little bit opaque. Has that solidified? For non-compliance, what happens? Are those penalties being
Um,
enforced, et cetera, et cetera?
so what I see, and that's my perspective on my hand, is basically the government do not have the resource to track each and every businesses. So when the issue is gonna kick in, it's like with cyber incidents. It's when an incident happen, then there's gonna be an investigation, and this is when that thing is gonna kick in
Mm,
because they're gonna look, did you do it right? And that's the whole key of documenting and doing the formal process for your organization. That's one of the recommendations because a lot of people think they do it, but they do not keep track, or update the documentation. So there is no proof. And when there is no proof, then from a legal standpoint, it doesn't exist. So that's the key thing that I see as incident will kick in. You will have an investigation, either because your customer will go after you because their data has been stolen, or your partners, because when we see incident, it's spreading around. I mean, all your customers may come after you, or even the legal investigation goes through that. So you'd better be backed at this point. Also to assess the damage as well, because proper governance allows you to know what was stolen, what's out. If you do not do that, if you don't do it right, you have no way to know what's been taken and what's the impact. And even your legal counsel cannot properly advise you against the way they will address the situation. Sometimes they will decide to go fully transparent. Sometimes they decide to hide the thing because of the size of the impact is smaller. It's just a business decision. This is not me. I mean, doing right is doing everything by the books. But the reality in the field is the legal counsel will advise the board to decide what action to take. And these decisions
mhm.
are based on data, and you must have that data. So that's the big gap that we see. And that's also why on the LinkedIn side, I share a lot about the incident, because there is always something to learn about these. Basically, you could technically build a security program out of all the incidents out there. Yeah. See what happened to them. Can this happen to us? That's every time you see something like that, it should trigger a question. Even if you're the CEO of the company, you are not obviously the CISO of it, but you are the CEO, and you see that happen to this, and especially if this is in the same vertical as your business, and then you wonder, oh, can that happen to me? And then ask your technical team, can this happen to us? Do we have the control? What do we do? And then that will naturally trigger a continuous enhancement. It's not a formal way to do it. You don't do the full scope, definition, the assessment, the evaluation, and all. But it's better than nothing to start with.
Yeah.
You brought up an interesting point in terms of demonstrating that you actually had governance in place when an issue does arise, or showing the extent of what that looks like. You find in the marketplace, we believe that this is a problem. You have all these different tools. You have disparate, siloed audit logs. It's really, really difficult to put together that bigger picture at the end of the day until we move to a more unified architecture when it comes to the way we manage content. What's your perception there? And do you see things improving, or staying about the same when it comes to all those disparate silos that exist?
Well, it was improving with the actual regulation coming in, but with the dynamic of the technology market and all the tools popping out and there, and the shift in employment as well, like people start projects, start to implement tools and solution, but then they leave, someone has come back, and they come with their own tools. So we have a lot of shelfwares or shelf solution, because sometimes, like most of the time, it's SaaS now, sadly, but this is what it is. and this is hard to get a follow-up. And one of the challenge too is like so many tools, so many external resources are involved, and the way to address that, I mean, the TPR, the third party risk assessment, needs to be done before anything, knowing what you signed for. And I'm not sure right now, because of the way solutions are adopted in organization, that every new contract, every new subscription go through the legal counsel. I mean, to be done right before subscribing to anything, all the terms and conditions need to be put for review through the legal counsel to make sure that what's offered and what's falling on the organization is actually well understood, so you know what you have to do. And the second thing on that, even if they do it right, it's not a static thing, because all the terms and conditions of all the third party we use has that clause that say these terms and conditions change all the time, blah blah blah. You must come back yourself to check that there is something new. And I'm not sure like many legal counsel of organization have an actual on change notification for the term of service they subscribe to. So that's very dynamic too. And that's one of the challenges that we see. We cannot address that dynamic thing with a static solution. So it's really, yeah.
That's an interesting. I caught something there. You said most tools are SaaS, and then you said sadly. I don't know, is that why you said sadly there? One of the things we often promote Kiteworks. We're a virtual appliance, and we have some messaging around not a SaaS by design. We have our reasons for that, but I'd love to understand why you think why there's a SaaS challenge, or is it just the legal aspect?
It's about, and it's a very formal thing, you know, I play a lot against that, but from a risk management, you know, you got contract and you got your risk posture, you got the context of your organization that you're supposed to own. But when you go through third party, where you do not control, you do not have a word about the change management, about the way change is implemented. I mean, the change management of your provider is not aligned to the change of your business. Sometimes they will do major change, but this is not aligned with your business posture. Sometimes you cannot take that at this time. So, and you do not have any, I mean, anyone who's been using, I don't know, like, customer relationship solution online, and there is a new release coming to tell you, in June, that's going to change, you have to change, blah, blah, blah. But if you had any development, anything on your hand, you cannot postpone that thing because you do not own it, you do not control it. And that means that you will need, and you have to go through the assessment of what's new, the terms and conditions, the impact of the change on your organization, every connector, every third party that you use. And that can be daunting for a business, because if you have one, that's fine. But if you start, and nowadays we have like dozens of these. So if you do things right, you are going to spend more than you can do to just review the change of your third party and solution. So that's why that's one part why I don't like to externalize everything. We need it, but you need to keep control of your things, because when something wrong happens, it's gonna fall back on you. So
no, that's
so
true.
something.
It's a great perspective. I haven't quite heard it coined that way, but the control part is huge, right? The more you can control the decision making of any of your infrastructure tools, whether security or not, the better off you are in everything you just said. The one caveat to that is then you got to control a bunch of stuff. You don't get to rely on the automatic updates and, you know, some of the support layers you get from the fact that you just can't. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but you just can't control everything, right? So I think you said like a balance across both is the key here. Stuff you control and stuff you outsource.
It's an assessment. Right now, it's sadly, you know, marketing side only selling magical, but the responsibility is a shared responsibility model, such as in the cloud. So you still have to do things. We have to leverage solution because we cannot do everything ourselves. I mean, today, it's like most of organization, it's not their core business to do the technology side of things, so they have to rely on it. But they still have to make the decision wisely, because if you multiply the thing, you are sold tons of magical things, but you will pay a price for that you may not see at first. And between compliance, but also the risk of cyber attack, cyber risk, and even the governance, you know, the life cycle of account management of employee coming in, leaving. And we see that all the time. So many accounts are never closed because the organization is not even aware that there was an account. So that's the kind of thing that is tricky to manage today. And I understand the market, it's all a time to market. It's all about being the first in the place to do the thing, to make a difference, to be ahead. But at the same time, there is an issue with that because it's bringing risk, and then you don't want to end in the news and being destroyed by an incident. So that's the whole thing we try. I mean, that's very high level speaking. You can put all kind of KPI and metrics because, as we say in ISO 27001, everything has to be measured. I mean, you need measurable, not miserable, but something you can measure to make sure that you are actually enhancing the situation and not getting worse. You need to measure the performance of your posture, knowing if you're doing things right. So that's how it goes.
What are some of the biggest? Good, Tim.
Go ahead.
No, I was just curious because you're working with all these clients, providing them with risk assessments. What are some of the biggest areas of concern or biggest gaps that you're seeing just in general when you do these assessments with customers when it comes to how they secure and protect and govern their data?
So there are many things. First of all, again, it depends if this is a tech company or non-tech company. There's a big gap there because the tech companies usually have kind of a better security posture role. They understand well the risks. What we see, the typical flat network, everything connected, and they don't understand that if a single malware getting, they are just cut off and they don't measure the impact properly. So sometimes I even go back to very, very down quantitative risk analysis with them. I tell them, and you don't have to, the basic I use is, okay, you have that many employees, let's say 50 employees, and you have an incident, whatever it is, and you are cut for a week. So take just how much these people cost to your company. That's going to give you an idea of the impact, of the financial impact, just of the loss of production. And usually, this is way, way above any investment they will do. This is the factor 10 or 100 sometimes compared to the solution or the change they need to apply in the little effort. Because, when you try and you can say, okay, to change that, you will need to invest in that, or make that change. And it's going to cost us so many hours, like, $50,000. And then say, yeah, but $50,000. If you get it tomorrow, this is like 10 times that. So then they realize, we didn't think about it. Because they think, they have like business interruption insurance coverage. But this is not covering cyber incident or digital impact. And also more and more what we see, because the insurance was usually the key answer where we get. I'm insured. If something happened, the insurance is covering us, and we have a partner, they can rebuild. But today, the insurance are dropping a lot of incidents, so you will not get paid, and they do not assess that as well. So part of the risk assessment and the compensation measure that you have in place, is it still valid? And they may not, because two things: either when the insurance contract was subscribed, the reality of the environment was not the same, or the insurance terms and conditions changed, and they blindly sign because this is not the operation people, or it's not always connected to the change management. They just renew an appendix to the contract stating blah blah blah, and they don't realize that it no longer covering the key asset of the organization. So that's the whole thing. And when I speak about it, it's like crazy. We have to think about everything. So you can go high level and still get your things together. There are some key things, and pretty basics, that will protect the organization. I mean, I like to think about immutable backup solution. Organization, to protect their data, they should have immutable backup solution. That's just ruling out any data loss issue for the long run.
Sure.
And this is cheap. And that thing, when you do that, you are going to check a lot of the resilience and the compliance need, assuming that you know what you have, and you actually don't have a policy that store data for too long according to the compliance side of things. But this is opening the discussion and the solution enhance. And usually what we see is that the organization outsource the sensitive part of things, like the payment side of things. We barely see organization doing the thing themselves. They use the bank solution or they use a third-party payment solution. So all the compliance side of this is actually outsourced. And they just have to focus to the historical transaction from accounting perspective. And that means they need to protect the accounting. And so if they have immutable backup, the accounting side is protected. So that's how you round up things, and you get up all the complexity of going too deep into the details.
Yeah, lot to unpack in what you said. I want to double click on the insurance piece. I haven't heard of this, but maybe you have. One of the aspects of data breaches is loss of revenue just from brand impact over a significant period of time. So yeah, there's fines. Okay, insurance can cover that. There's being sued, which goes on and on forever. There's some level of insurance for that, but there's revenue loss from. So to say as a company, oh, we have insurance, we're taken care of, that seems like a really naive statement.
It
Yeah,
doesn't cover lawyer fees as well, right, Alexander? On top of
Yeah,
brand
lawyer
impact.
fees,
Yeah.
not
yeah,
just fines, the fees, the brand reputation. It's
yeah,
it gets very
yeah.
expensive very fast, and insurance only goes so far.
Yeah, and human mind, we tend to remind things that went wrong. So I mean, we can easily give the name of 10 different high-level brands in IT in the last 5 year that got blasted. And if you have this
Hmm.
name and another name that is kind of clean, you must likely have a bias to go to the clean one. Oh well, some people say it's good to go with an organization that had an incident and that did manage it very well. Like if they've been transparent, they did quantify the impact and controlled it. It's kind of the experience paying off an organization that is fairly newer and never faced it. So it's just like
Yeah,
you could have, and the fun part is like if you had an incident, it was like kind of small enough, but you manage it well. It can be good for the brand because you show
yeah,
expertise, you show control. Now, if you had some big bad thing, I don't think you can recover from that.
hmm,
The market will continue because people are customer lock in situation. So it may take a decade to escape from a failing provider, but the price will be paid on that, I'm sure. I mean, we see that. I mean, I guess when I speak about that, you think about big names I have in mind, and these big names will suffer from that from a decade long ahead. They will try, the strategies, split the company, rename, rebrand, blah blah blah. But you have to do it right and very right to recover from that. At least when I speak to organization, that's where I will go because you don't want to be the collateral of a main provider issue, and this is happening a lot today.
yeah. It's interesting you bring up the sort of size of the breach, and then the resilience and how the company deals with it as a marker of quality, as a mark of quality cybersecurity practices. To dredge up a little bit of our past, um, 4 or 5 years ago, we had it was called FTA, file transfer appliance, that was end of life, and the company was moving as many customers off of it. It's in the news. This is all very public, but it was relative, and it ended up getting breached, and it was a relatively small part of our customer base that were impacted. But because our CEO was so transparent on what was happening, worked hand and foot with the FBI and any agencies that were involved, all of that ended up being sort of a feather in our cap in terms of showing what we have in place for cybersecurity, what we have in place for resilience, the how we lessen the impact, and then moving forward. And it's almost a little bit of a reminder sometimes for companies to over rotate on your cybersecurity practices, especially at this day and age. And then to your point, we see companies betting on us because of that. A, experience; B, transparency; and C,
Mm.
our cybersecurity practices moving forward. What, not to be a commercial here, but one of the things that CISA here in the U.S. put out was a document and guidance called Security by Design and by Default, which sort of listed all of the best practices in terms of software development to have security first in how you develop and how you put the posture forward for default settings and things like that. Turns out our chief product officer over the past 5 or 6 years has created without that document, has actually created a process for securing our system for our customers that aligns right with it. So again, some of that was driven by just fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me kind of perspective.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's nice to see. And also, when you get the CISA recommendation, there are tons of document with best practices around. You can CIS doing a lot, Center for Internet Security, and all depending on the different platform you see. But as long as the culture of security is now deep in the organization and basically part in the change management, that's the key. Because if you have a formal change management process, and you should, because today you need to know the impact of every change given all the different interaction between systems. If you just take the action of adding a security check on each and every step, and most of the time there is no impact, security impact zero, none, it goes on. But if you have it and you check just that thing, that's gonna be a huge difference for organization. And I like what you brought. I mean, security by design and by default. I'm a big advocacy for that. I create on my end security and privacy by default and by design, so as the
sure,
user wouldn't have to. And that's not related to you or security organization, but more at the global big tech industry. But as individual or as customer, as business, we shouldn't have to take an action to opt out of something invasive. We could be offered, for whatever reason, to kick in, at the product development, at giving feedback, but it should not be the default to be invasive and having to opt out. So it goes together. I see on the market there are a lot of organizations getting there, because in the end this is building trust, and we need to rebuild trust. Because something that I bring a lot in my share is like, today we cannot trust technology because it's lying everywhere. It's bad, but this is what it is. Because either the posture is not what is claimed to be, or the real impact or use of the data of what you give away is not clearly explained, and there is a lot of deception in it. So that's what we need to clear. And I think organizations that really look for transparency, as you said, and clearly tell customer what's in, what's out, and what they sign up for, is going to make a big difference in the long run. At least that's my hope.
do you have
you brought up the privacy
sorry,
component? You see more. Maybe Tim and I are about to ask the same question. With the NIST privacy framework, are you seeing more focus on that in the marketplace? It's been out 2 or 3 years now. Is there a shift from security by design to privacy by design? How do those two correlate?
Well, they work together because security is about protecting the data. So, privacy is about giving the control of the data owner. That's a big difference. The data owner control the access to the data. And basically, security and privacy is quite the same. Just in the security side of things, is the organization responsibility to protect its assets. On the privacy side, it's just data owner focused. So it's just an extra step. And when we speak about PIMS, privacy information management solution, this is just bringing control to the owner of the information, like the GDPR-like kind of things. And we see that popping. The regulation, aside of the NIST framework on privacy, the regulation in the US states is growing. We saw CCPA, it has been revised and updated, and we see a lot of great things being pushed, at least on my end, especially on the IoT side of things. That's also a big challenge, because people plug these embedded system, not realizing that they are creating a big attack surface, not knowing what's in there. No one can audit what's in these boxes, the camera you plug on your network and stuff like that. So when I saw in the US, I think California came the first with that mandatory update and security toward IoT. That's a great step, because if we try, as an organization, to secure the whole infrastructure, perimeter, micro perimeter, or whatever the hybrid environment that we have, but all around we have these uncontrolled assets that are tapped into our everything, then it's worthless, because it's killing our effort. So it has to be unified. It has to be overall aligned with the control that we
When these
have.
devices proliferate, to your point, Tim and I, before the podcast started, we're talking about a new one that's on the marketplace. It is a pen. we're capturing more and more personal data, and who knows if it's secure, and who
I,
knows if you have control of it, right?
I think I just saw that thing this morning on LinkedIn. Someone shared about it. There was a presentation, and they said there is a LED blinking when it records. And is it the one that has the laser projection kind of things when you can have all the things? Okay, so I was like, to me, it was a big no, but because well, we have to be realistic. We cannot escape the surveillance things because everybody has a, your neighbor has a ring bell, even if you don't want it. It's looking toward you, so you are in there. But I think awareness is one key. Knowing that's there, and then knowing what, because we don't have to be playing individually on that. So when you do things like be aware of the impact, and these camera, someone said it's like a new fancy body cam for everybody. I'm like, yeah, that's true. So I know pros and cons.
I did that thing where I talk with my mute on, so I'm going to try it without the mute on. But the pin is it's called Humane AI, but the industry that's evolving is wearable AI,
Yeah.
and in the next 1-2 years, it's just going to be ubiquitous. Like everybody's going to have some form of wearable AI, and the data collection, the data privacy, the amount of resources that are going to need to be put into regulations and regulators and auditing, and it's just immense. And so it kind of leads me to another question for you. Okay, AI is driving a lot of the problem. Have you seen anything yet on a cybersecurity or privacy standpoint that will help scale the protection and compliance from a technology standpoint yet, or is it
Yeah.
still too
Well,
early?
AI is already in the sell pitch for a couple of years in many actors. All the detection and response is based on no longer a signature or anything. This is about behavior analytics, and this is correlation of information, which is also AI powered. To sort out and do the triage, what's wrong, what's a false positive and stuff. AI is a lot used to that because it's faster than human to get the solution. So that's one thing. Now, it's also used for data recognition. When you get to do your data inventory, AI is used to sort the data. What's private information, what's PII, what's sales pitch, what's public information. So this is already used on that. Now, when it comes to the integration in our environment, and when we speak, body cam, wearable, we speak smart cities and all, cars, transportation, everything. Well, we need frameworks. We need, the states came with this AI recommendation about, what the good use of AI and some guidelines not to get abused. It's needed to protect people and to protect society. I understand, and the challenge is the regulation should not kill innovation.
Yep.
Because if we are too strong on regulation, another country is going to go ahead and come with something bigger. So that's why I'm a privacy advocate, but I'm also aware on the tech side. And again, back to the beginning of the discussion, why I share what I share is I want to bend the trajectory so as we do things the right way. We allow people to have a choice, yet we still evolve. But let's not forget, and let's go evil side of things. Also, in the tech side, we will have some backfire as well. And we should be transparent as well. The same thing we spoke about organization, trust, and transparency. The AI impact, the negative impact, the negative stories should be shared, and people should be aware so as they can make proper decision, informed decision. I saw a story about the autonomous vehicle driving lately. The company that were involved in that did hide the casualties and hide many bad things that did happen. And this is not the way you build trust. So I understand the investment. We speak about billions a year spent on that research and development. But look at what's happening. Finally, the story got out and everything got stopped. No more authorization to be on the street and stuff like that. So do it right. Just come on. We're in it together. I understand there is innovation, but do it right. Show that if you need more time, I understand this is money, right? But if you don't do it right, it's gonna backfire. It's gonna cost you tons. We saw in the automotive industry so many stories about saving a few bucks and killing many people and then backfiring with global recalls. So why are we doing that again and again? I mean, just even from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense. So do it right, please, people. It's a bit idealistic, I know, but we should try to go toward that.
Well, it's part of the podcast here too. Is just amplifying voices of reason. It's really all you can do, not just in IT and security, but in a lot of domains that are facing a culture and a world of uncertainty. Don't know who to trust, what to trust. So as level-headed voices go a long way, and we're happy to be part of advancing that. Let me ask you kind of one final question, unless Patrick has, and this is kind of a loaded question, but I'm interestingly starting to get into a little bit more conversations with customers and the government around data security in the quantum computing era. Are you hearing much about this? What happens to encryption? We're 5-10 years out, et cetera, or is it still just...
Yeah, so what people don't realize is we're already late on that. I had a chance to participate in discussion. There was a Microsoft doing a presentation. They've been working a long time ago. I think I was in that meeting 2019 or so, where Microsoft did release a post-quantum encryption prototype, which was a fork of OpenVPN back then. And they have been working on that a lot. Thing is, this is constantly evolving, so PQI, post-quantum encryption, is a dynamic field because the more we discover about the quantum capabilities, the more it's invalidating theoretical encryption stuff that we have today. But the key thing about the threat of that is that there is that main threat, which is record now, decrypt later. So if you tap into the network feed today, and this is happening everywhere, all the country does that. They tap, even if it's encrypted, and when the capability is there against the cipher, it's going to be decrypted. And that goes back to the question of the life cycle of the data. How long is the data valid for an enemy, for an attacker, for an industry, for spying? I mean, people think like what you say today doesn't matter. But let's say if I have access to all your emails from 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, and then you think about which business, which vertical has a life cycle of products that goes up to 100 years. So let's go. Energy, grid power. These things last 50 years, 100 years. Nuclear nukes, missiles, military strategy, networking stuff, critical infrastructure of the countries. And this has been sent, encrypted, back then in ciphers that either you can already break today or that quantum is going to break. So think that everything you add toward now, everything top secret that has been transiting on the network will be decrypted. So even if we fix today quantum, we still have a big issue because you do not move a secret research center. You don't change the security of physical facilities that are huge, that have been billions of investment. And that's the biggest challenge. I mean, aside of the fancy, we sell post-quantum encryption, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cute. But the biggest threat is not there. The biggest threat is what we did for the last 20 years. So
that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. How far do you go back and take inventory, basically, of the sensitive information that you have? And did you have policies to get rid of it, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, getting rid of the data that you no longer need, that's part of the risk assessment, I assume, that you provide to your clients and recommend.
Yeah, but there is governance and that, but the fact that you get rid of it, if it has been tapped on the network, it's not disappearing. It's copied somewhere.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So if it was tapped years ago, 20 years ago or something.
Yeah. Because you saw like a few years ago, it happens all the time, like BGP hijack, BGP protocol, the core routing of internet. We saw like many countries hijacking accidentally traffic. And I think 2 years ago was the whole traffic to Azure was hijacked in Iran or something like that. And it was a mistake with someone on the IS autonomous system on the network that did basically what people do. They claim to own the IP address, the public IP of an infrastructure, and all the client then reach that IP. So, and if you during that time frame, you collect the data, you're gonna have a lot of information. And so that's part of the scope.
I see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we've heard.
Not
I
only
think
on the
we've
network,
seen
now it's in
stories
all the
about that.
Yeah.
LLMs.
Yeah, that just aren't. I don't know. This is. I'm tapping into my own Wayback Machine here, but aren't there nation states that are actively tapped and collecting encrypted data they can't do anything with today, just to
Yep.
be able to in the future
Yep.
decrypt it, essentially, right?
Yeah. That's a reality. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's also all the threat that we see now. So the quantum question, it's many things at once. It's guessing the innovation and evolution of quantum computing in the next decade. It's investing in post-quantum encryption capability that you don't know how far and how long it's going to hold. So what's the impact on your business? See what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that what transit online right now will be decrypted in the future, how far shouldn't we get the sensitive thing local? I mean, that's part of my cloud complaint, kind of. When you do cloud, you send data encrypted, yes, for now, um, to a remote location. Okay, it's good for a thing that you don't care. I mean, usual enterprise, SMB, okay,
Yeah.
fine. What they do today is going to be gone tomorrow. We don't care. But
Right.
more sensitive, there is a gap where stuff become really sensitive, and this sensitive data should not go out and transit in the public stuff, even encrypted as today, given what we know from tech. So that's the quantum side of things. It's unknown. What we know is that because people have been discussing record now and decrypt later, this is a thing. So it can happen. So we need two things. We need to assess what the hell did we transmit in the past decades, and that is still relevant today for enemies. Well, if you are a state or a government, for enemies, if you are a private organization, do we have patent? Do we have secrets that's been transiting? What's going to be the impact? And how can we, what can we do to lower the risk of that?
Who was it sent to, right? And what privileges did they have? So
Correct.
Well, we're over time on this podcast. This has been
It's a fun one.
very
Yeah, we're gonna do
interesting
it again.
conversation. We covered about 10 different things, I think, during today's call. Before we wrap things up, Alexandre, how can folks get in touch with VARs if they're interested in knowing more about your organizations or yourself?
That's going to be LinkedIn. They should reach out and connect through LinkedIn. That's going to be simple. And and if they want to reach and follow me, and if they can go through and send through my complaint and rant against cloud, I apologize for that, but I mean, someone has to do it, Just shake a little bit the staticos. Are you sure this is right? Maybe not. Stuff like that.
Well, we thank you for your time today. We appreciate our audience. As always, if you're interested in other KiteCast episodes, you can go to kiteworks.com/KiteCast. We'll see you on our next show.
Thank you.